Now to the continued fallout over the sprawling indictment of 13 Russian nationals for intervening in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In a moment, William Brangham will take an in-depth look at the charges. But first, White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor has some of the backstory, beginning with the president's reaction.
President Trump did not speak publicly about the bombshell indictment during his weekend away from Washington. His venting instead came through some 20-odd tweets since Saturday. More than half were related to the indictment or the Russia investigation in general. In several tweets, including one today, Mr. Trump blamed former President Obama for not doing enough about Russia's meddling. Mr. Trump also claimed he, quote, never said Russia did not meddle in the election. But last July, in an interview with Reuters, Mr. Trump would not say if he believed Russia actually meddled in the 2016 election. Mr. Trump said then that he raised the issue with President Putin twice and that Putin denied any meddling. Mr. Trump then told Reuters, quote, so something happened and we have to find out what it is. Special counsel Robert Mueller's indictment against the Internet Research Agency, other Russian associates and companies alleges that Russian entities did have, quote, a strategic goal to sow discord in the U.S. political system, including the 2016 U.S. presidential election, and acted toward that goal. On Saturday, the president's national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, left little doubt about where he stood.
As you can see with the FBI indictment, the evidence is now really incontrovertible and available in the public domain.
Mr. Trump attacked that as well over the weekend. General McMaster, he tweeted, forgot to say that the results of the 2016 election were not impacted or changed by the Russians. The indictment does claim that the Russian defendants aimed to hurt some of the 2016 presidential candidates, like Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and to support President Trump, as well as one Democratic candidate, Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders, over the weekend, said that lined up with some of what he knew from the 2016 election cycle.
It turns out that one of our social media guys in San Diego actually went to the Clinton campaign in September and said something weird is going on. Bernie's not in the campaign. Hundreds of these people are now coming onto his Facebook site. So I think we already knew that. It was an effort to undermine American democracy and to really say horrible things about Secretary Clinton.
The indictment alleges that, as part of the Russian operation, some of the defendants, quote, traveled to the United States under false pretenses for the purpose of collecting intelligence to inform defendants' operations. That's in direct conflict to President Trump's remarks in West Virginia this past August.
The Russia story is a total fabrication. Have you seen any Russians in West Virginia or Ohio or Pennsylvania? Are there any Russians here tonight? Any Russians?
And when Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein announced the indictment last week, he went into detail about the rallies that the Russian defendants allegedly helped arrange using social media.
The Russians also recruited and paid real Americans to engage in political activities, promote political campaigns, and stage political rallies. The defendants and their co-conspirators pretended to be grassroots activists. According to the indictment, the Americans did not know that they were communicating with Russians. After the election, the defendants allegedly staged rallies to support the president-elect while simultaneously staging rallies to protest his election.
The indictment says that rallies, allegedly boosted by the Russian defendants, happened before and after the election in Pennsylvania, Florida, New York, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. At a Senate hearing last week, the administration's intelligence chiefs fielded questions about whether President Trump specifically asked them to take actions to curb future Russian election operations.
Has the president directed you and your agency to take specific actions to confront and blunt Russian influence activities that are ongoing?
Not as specifically directed by the president.
Okay.
For us, I can't say that I've been explicitly directed to, quote, blunt or actively stop. On the other hand, it's very clear, generate knowledge and insight, help us understand this so we can generate better policy. That clearly, that direction has been very explicit in fairness.
The intelligence officials told the panel they had no reason to believe Russia's efforts would subside. Mr. Trump claims last week's indictment proves his campaign did not collude with Russia, but Mueller's investigation into that possibility continues. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Yami Shalsendor.
This indictment of over a dozen Russians for committing, quote, information warfare on the United States is without a doubt a major development in the special counsel's investigation into Russian meddling in our last election. Matthew Olson ran the National Counterterrorism Center during the Obama administration and was a longtime federal prosecutor. Welcome back to the NewsHour.
Thanks, William.
So give me your initial impressions of this indictment.
Yeah, so I think the most striking thing about the indictment when you read it is the extraordinary detail that it includes about this information warfare campaign that the Russians carried out. This is a speaking indictment, what prosecutors call a speaking indictment. Prosecutors could just lay out the bare elements of the crime, but in this case, the special counsel went to great pains to establish each of the facts necessary to show this really systematic effort to conspire against the United States. And it's important to bear in mind that for every overt act in this indictment, that means that the special counsel believes he has provable evidence. He has facts that he can demonstrate in court to back up these facts, as your opening showed, of infiltration of the United States by Russian operatives to do all manner of things, including set up phony rallies and establish fake personas for Americans.
Some have referred to this as a message indictment, meaning we're not going to anytime soon see any of these Russians put on a plane and extradited to the U.S. So is Mueller sending a message with this? Is this laying out in such explicit detail that's the purpose in and of itself?
Well, I think it does send that message, and as you say, it's unlikely that these individuals will be in the United States in a courtroom anytime soon, but it does much more than that. This indictment is a foundational indictment. It establishes the bedrock foundation of this conspiracy charge on which the special counsel can now build a broader case, and I think there's every reason to expect, given the extraordinary detail in this indictment, as well as the fact that there are a number of cooperating witnesses who've pled guilty now and who are assisting the special counsel, including, for example, Mike Flynn, to expect that there will be additional charges on top of this foundational charging document.
In this indictment, there's no specific mention that these operators, these actors, were being told to do what they did by the Kremlin. That is the assumption that everyone makes. Do you believe without a shadow of a doubt that this is a Putin operation?
You know, I believe what the intelligence community has said about this from the early days of it first being exposed by our intelligence leaders and officials, and that is that this type of operation would not occur without the explicit direction of the Kremlin, including Putin himself. And I think that's absolutely consistent with everything I've seen.
You mentioned that this is building the foundation for further possible conspiracy charges. What else about this? Does this give you any greater sense of where the probe is going forward?
It does. Again, this is a conspiracy charge that just charged the Russian side of this. I think that, in my view, is potentially a strategic decision by the special counsel to make this a very apolitical charging document because it's focused on the Russians. But if you look at the document itself, it talks about that the grand jury charged individuals known and unknown who conspired, that there are others who are known and unknown to the grand jury who are part of this. So again, there are other charges. For example, the hacking of the Democratic National Committee. We know that's a crime. That's not charged here. Obstruction of justice is also within the purview of this investigation. So again, I think there's every reason to expect that this is really the first major salvo in what is likely to be additional charges with other crimes as well as other individuals charged.
All of the intel chiefs have said Russia meddled, and they say we're going to do it again. For the record, the White House gave us a statement today saying that President Trump does take this very seriously, that he's going to do everything he can to defend the next election. They point out that they held a hearing last week with state and local election officials to talk about meddling. Do you think, looking at the landscape now, that we are doing enough to defend the next election from this kind of an attack?
You know, there have been some signs of additional efforts being done But I think the answer to your question is definitively no. We lack, from the very top, from the leader, from the commander-in-chief, a definitive statement saying that this was the Russians and that he is not going to blame others, for example, President Obama, but he is going to blame the people who are responsible, and that is the Russians, including the Russian government. And there's lots more that he can do, that the president can do, and the government can do to make Russia pay a price, including sanctions and including other activities that our government can undertake. As of this point, the president really hasn't stepped up to his constitutional obligation to defend our democracy. He's actually failed to do that, and I think that's what we'll be looking for in the future from the president.
Matthew Olson, thank you very much.
Thank you.